Oh, yes.
Welcome back once again, everyone. Today we're taking a look at the brand new Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy Generation Selects Decepticon Sandstorm. Sandstorm is number 21 in the Hasbro-initiated Generation Selects line. And for anyone unfamiliar, he is a redeco of the Earthrise Ramjet toy. And this toy is an homage to the unreleased Generation 2 figure that was a redeco of the original Ramjet. It was a desert camoed, slightly given some flavor paint Seeker character that, for whatever reason, never saw the light of day. I don't know if the figure itself was outright canceled on its own merits, or if it was because of the cancellation of G2. But Hasbro, they took note of people taking note of this unreleased prototype and finally made it a reality. So if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Sandstorm's packaging, then we'll open it up, we'll see the instructions, and then we'll see Sandstorm himself in both his vehicle and robot modes. Naturally, I'll be doing comparisons with, the other Earthrise Seekers. I'm going to pull out the Autobot Sandstorm and talk about that whole dichotomy there. And then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So Sandstorm, he comes in your very typical, by now, Generation Selects packaging. You got your spray-painted Autobot logo. You got your Ancient Autobot, the logo. One thing I do want to point out, interestingly, I just reviewed Bugbite previously. Bugbite actually had the mercenary symbol spray-painted on here. This guy's a Decepticon, and like all the other Decepticons released in Selects, he doesn't get a Decepticon symbol. So it's weird that Bugbite's kind of the odd man out there. Right here, you can see his name on the label, and then that's pretty much it. You already know what to expect. All right, our label is open, so pop this up. You have, what you can already expect from your War for Cybertron inner packaging. Here's old Sandstorm, and like I said, he is a direct redeco of Ramjet, so he looks just like Ramjet. Garbage stuff, I wish they'd stop putting in there. And then the instructions. And pretty sure it's probably just going to be the same renders and everything as the Ramjet toy, because why wouldn't it be, But there's this picture. No tech specs, because they only do that in, Earthrise proper figures. And then you just get the transformation from robot to very strange-looking jet mode. Missile storage, and there you go, finished product. Okay, here's our look at the vehicle mode for Sandstorm. And unsurprisingly, it is the exact same shape as Ramjet's. However, he's got a lot of new detailing and color layout that really helps him stand apart. So he's got the really cool, I don't know if it's supposed to be, I think it's a dog face, right? Weren't these supposed to be dog faces because they're dog fighters? I think. The history's a little off there. Got the really nice desert camo. It's got Decepticon symbols. Now, oddly, they're G1 symbols. You would think with a G2 character, they'd go out of their way to make them the G2 version. But, oh well. So, he's just got a really, these kind of colors you don't see on, Generations toys much. This is something more like what you'd see in a movie-verse toy, like one of the old Bay film toys. But it's really cool. You can see it's got kind of white flecks in the camo, too. That's kind of cool. Underside, pretty nice looking too. Kind of lighter shades of tan around here on the knees and under there. Got some red. Overall, just looks really good. Very color coordinated. The missiles, I think I would have preferred if they were a different color than the main tan. Maybe if they're this darker brown, but it's kind of a minor nitpick. Looks fine. Overall, I really like it. I love the way that this looks. All the normal, pros and cons of the mold apply here. There's no landing gear and kind of an empty plane mode, right? You got this big empty space, so that hasn't changed. But from the top, he looks really cool. Some sort of sci-fi-like jet. And I really dig it. Like the way that this jet mode turned out. Here's a quick comparison with Ramjet, just so you can see all the color layout differences. The cockpits seem to be the same orange color that, really all the Earthrise Seekers are. But beyond that, everything's, completely different. The layouts are different for the most part. You see there's a lot more black on this nose cone than there is on this one. They do use black for the little jet engine areas here. And then aside from that, everything else is pretty unique between the two, which I like. Very happy about that. I also want to point out, in my Ramjet review, I noticed that he was missing a Decepticon symbol on one of his wings, and I thought that's just how they did the toy. Well, people let me know that this is defective. It is supposed to have 2 on there. It wasn't like a mess up on their part, it's just a factory error. And if you're familiar with how that Ramjet and Dirge 2-pack sold out like almost immediately, the odds of me ever getting a replacement are pretty much 0. So I'm just stuck with a defective Ramjet. Yay for me. Now here's our Earthrise Seeker Squadron. So these are all the Earthrise Seekers released so far. The only one that's missing, or at least that's been announced, is Thrust. So when I get Thrust, I'll go a little further and I'll get all the Earthrise Seekers plus whichever of the Siege characters don't have an Earthrise form, like the Rainmakers and stuff. And we'll get the full loadout. It'll be really fun. Not sure how I'll fit them on the table, but we'll make it work. So yeah, it's really cool seeing these guys like this. It'll be even better once we finally get Thrust, just to round it all out. And it's neat, right? Because we are getting some non-standard Seekers in Earthrise finally. You know, we got the regular trio first, then we got the Coneheads, which, while released less often than the regular Seekers, they're not unknowns, right? They're pretty standard characters. And now we're getting something cool and different like Sandstorm here. And I am always down for more Seekers. Especially if they're going to go and be creative, you know, like something like this. Okay, now we can take our good look at Sandstorm in his robot mode. And, you know, yet again, looks just like Ramjet. Now, one thing I gotta say I'm kind of disappointed by is the fact that he is a Conehead. I know it seems like a silly complaint, but I personally would have preferred if he used Ramjet's body, but then used the standard Seeker head, the rounded one. And it's purely because the artwork for the G2 Sandstorm did use the whole nose cone down configuration, which, you know, was generally used for the regular Seekers. Now, to be fair, the box artwork for the regular Coneheads also had the, you know, the nose cone down, so yeah, it doesn't mean anything. But I just kind of always pictured him with the regular head, and personally, I would have liked it. It would have also made him much more unique, you know, because he has one type of body, but a different type of head. Minor nitpick, nothing against the toy, just personal preference. But again, here you can see his very sand-like colors are really on display, especially on the upper arms, the little skirt flap here, parts of his feet. And yeah, I mean, he really shines here. He looks a lot cleaner because most of that camouflage is on the back now. And he just becomes, you know, admittedly kind of plain. His colors aren't as broken up as they are most of the Seekers, but in a way that kind of works for him because he is just more unique. He's more different. You know, variety sometimes includes having a planar variation, so I'm okay with it. As far as tolerances, everything on him is just fine in this mode. The head still works on its ball joint, the shoulders are still good, bicep swivel, all that. Pretty tight on the bicep swivel. Still no waist articulation, but everything else is there, you know, the hips, the knees, all that stuff. Now, something I want to point out that I didn't show with the transformation, but this forearm right here, when it's collapsed down for the plane mode, trying to open this panel up to extend it was a nightmare. I actually had to use a knife to pry it open. For some reason, it clasped so tightly around his upper arm, I could not get it off with my hands. Hopefully that's just my copy and it's not a widespread thing. Because while it doesn't necessarily ruin the toy, you should never need an outside tool to transform your Transformer. Like, that is a major QC issue. So I just wanted to point that out. It could happen to yours, it might not. Who knows? Here we have his mold mate Ramjet again. And you can see that they're just very different color schemes. There are some minor similarities. You know, the skirt flats being a different color, the shin accents, the feet. But then there's a lot of differences too, right? He doesn't get the color breakup on the chest and stuff that Ramjet does. Now, I will say Ramjet's face pops a lot more because it's got this really shiny silver paint on it, whereas Sandstorm just uses black paint. So it might make it a little hard to see in low light conditions. But it's not bad and is more unique, which is like kind of the word of the day here. And they work well together, even though they have the same exact body type. The different colors, the different color breakup really helps them feel like separate characters. Here's another big group shot with our Earthrise Seekers. And, you know, it's a cool thing. It really is nice to see this kind of ever-expanding army of elite aerial warriors for the Decepticon cause. Now, I know most people aren't going to go crazy and buy, like, all these guys. But if you have the will, you have the means, it's very gratifying to see. Now for a fun little group shot, we have the Sandstorms. So we get Generation 1 character represented by his Thrilling 30 toy. And then we get the Machine Wars Sandstorm represented by his BotCon figure. And he may or may not be the same character as G1 Sandstorm, depending on the continuity. But it's interesting to see that within one continuity family, you have 2 to 3 different characters named Sandstorm. It doesn't happen all that often within one series like that, but in this case, that's what we get. Now, we currently don't have a background for G2 Sandstorm, you know, as far as a character. We don't know what he's like. It is possible that someone, especially Takara, might go ahead and decide that, like, he actually is the Autobot character turned traitor. They did the same thing for G1 Autobot Smokescreen and G2 Decepticon Smokescreen. So I can see them pulling that again. You know, this guy gets tired of being an Autobot, becomes a Seeker. Could happen. They'd be going really above and beyond if they actually tie this version in as well. But we'll see what happens. They may not touch it because it is a Hasbro Selects toy. They're not going to make a manga about it or anything. So if anything, he'll just show up as like a cameo in someone else's manga. All right. I think that's going to conclude our look at Sandstorm. Overall, I'm very pleased with this release. It was an absolute surprise when it was announced. The G2 Megatron wasn't too surprising because, you know, it's like, okay, well, this has been done a few times. But the fact that we got a canceled Generation 2 Seeker all these years later is just awesome. I really love that they did this for the fans. It does make me wonder if the other canceled Seeker that we know about, which was a black Starscream looking character called Blackout, I wonder if he'll be produced. He's a little bit lesser known than Sandstorm, but it'd be a good opportunity to use this mold yet again, which is, you know, always good for Hasbro's bottom line, and it'll give collectors another obscure Seeker to collect. So I'd like to see it happen. Whether or not it does, time will tell. I haven't heard any rumors or leaks about it. So this guy, not only is he just cool in concept, he's great in execution. His desert camo colors just really take this toy to a new level of awesome. I love everything about this. I do have that one minor QC issue, which I hope isn't prevalent. Just be aware, you could have a problem opening his right forearm when you transform him. And I'm happy this thing exists. Of course, that is just how I feel about this toy. Now, what I really want to know is what you all think of the new Sandstorm. Do you see yourselves picking this up? Does it really scratch that itch for you for, you know, deep cut characters? Or are you not interested, he's too out there, or you don't like the mold, or too similar to Ramjet? I'm sure there's a lot of different feelings about this guy. Looking forward to seeing your guys' feedback in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let you two know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the brand new Transformers Generation Selects Generation 2 Sandstorm. And with all that said, I will see you next time.